Mercy. This was a word we had never heard. We were laborers, slaves to the cold, dark mines, where the only light came from the eyes of the machines. I was medic adjutant Cairn Ve, just a small cog in the Imperium, a man who only patched wounds. The first patient came to me. His name was Ellis, from the deepest section of the mine. His body bore no wounds, but his eyes. His eyes were fixed somewhere else, as if something beyond the darkness was calling to him. Red blotches covered his skin, and his lips kept whispering, "The blood is waking. The blood is hungry." I gave him sedatives, the same as I always did. But when I visited him again the next night, his veins had swollen black, and from his ears came faint whispers. Within 3 days, 5 more workers had fallen to the same sickness. Each claimed they had seen dreams where they stood inside a cavern, its ceiling dripping with blood, and a shadow bent over them. I reported everything to the overseer of the colony, but he only said one thing: stay silent. If the workers panic, production will stop. But in my heart I knew this was no ordinary disease. Something ancient was stirring. This was no disease. It was a whisper. Within the first week, 14 patients were brought to me, all of them workers from the lowest levels of the mine. Their symptoms were the same: red eyes, blackened veins, sweat carrying the stench of iron. And every one of them dreamed the same dream. Blood is flowing in the darkness, and it is calling to us. I separated the patients, placing them in an empty storage hall we turned into a quarantine zone. But isolation was no solution. At night, while I stood watch, I saw it myself. The patients moved together in unison. No one spoke, yet their faces all turned at the same moment, as if their minds were no longer separate. By the end of the second week, out of the colony's 300 people, nearly 90 had fallen ill. I reported again to the overseer. This time he was afraid. He ordered the entire lower section sealed, forbidding workers from coming up. But the order came too late. Cases appeared in the upper residential blocks as well. Children were the first. I treated an 8-year-old girl named Mira. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. When I checked her fever, she began to laugh. And with her laughter, 3 other patients behind me laughed as well, at the same moment, in the same tone. I told her mother she must be isolated at once, but her mother grasped my hand and whispered, "Doctor, she is no longer alone. The blood has accepted her. It will accept all of us." That same night, the first death occurred. A worker suddenly convulsed, his body twisting, bones snapping, until bloody spines tore through his chest. He screamed, but his scream carried other voices, as if the whole hall was screaming with him. I killed him. I drove a needle into his heart to end his suffering, but the others shrieked in rage. "Why did you stop him? He was waking. Let him wake. Let us all wake." I trembled. Now I was certain. This was no illness, no ancient virus, no germ. This was something else. The blood god, stirring in the depths below. This was no longer a sickness. It had become a ritual. Inside the quarantine hall, I saw it with my own eyes. The patients gathered around one another. Their lips moved, but the voices came from different directions. And when I drew closer, I realized they were all repeating the same words. "Blood is our father. Blood is our savior." I shivered. This was no longer medicine, no longer science. It had become belief. By the 4th week, when the infected numbered over 200, they began worshipping openly. At night, a light pulsed from their hall, red and beating, like the rhythm of a heart. I watched in secret. At the center stood a child, and the rest bowed before her. It was the same child, Mira, the 8-year-old girl. She raised her tiny hands and declared, "The Father of Stars will soon arrive. We have awakened his blood. You are all his children." And the crowd screamed together, "Amen." I told myself it was madness, yet something inside me began to stir. a strange pull, as if those words were seeping into my own blood. That same night, 3 workers vanished. By morning, their bodies were found. They were empty husks, as if every drop had been drained. Not a trace of blood remained. On their chests, a red mark had been drawn, a circle with a symbol like an eye within it. I reported to the overseer, but he only said, "It's nothing but hysteria. The soldiers will come, they'll set it right." But I knew nothing would ever be set right again. The worship spread. Each night, new voices joined. Each day, more workers fell ill. This colony was no longer a mine. It had become a temple of blood. The moment I feared most had come. The patients were no longer patients. They were worshippers, and now they had begun to rebel. One night, in the 5th week, noise erupted from the deep tunnels of the mine. The workers attacked the guards. They carried no weapons, but their bodies had changed. Hardened shells had formed over their skin, and sharp spines jutted from their arms. A guard's throat was torn open with a single strike. When I ran outside, I saw the quarantine gates shattered. Hundreds of people with crimson eyes were shouting in unison, "Free the blood! Give the blood a path!" The overseer ordered the soldiers to open fire at once. Gunshots rang out, bodies fell. But the fallen began to rise again. Blood poured from their veins, seeping into the earth as though feeding them new strength. I saw something that will never leave me. A woman struck in the chest by a bullet. She collapsed, but in the next instant, red lines crawled from the ground, sealing her wound and raising her to her feet once more. Her scream was no longer human. It sounded like a prayer. That day, the colony was split in 2. On one side, those who remained human, trembling in terror. On the other, those who had become the believers of blood. I gathered the survivors inside the Medicae hall. But even there, the children began to change. Their laughter echoed like a distant choir singing in unison. We tried to resist. The guards sealed off passages, collapsed tunnels with explosives. But it was only temporary. The rebellion could not be stopped. That night my heart broke, for I saw among them my old friend, the foreman, Yorn, who had worked beside me for years. His eyes glowed red now. He looked at me, smiled, and said, "Doctor, now you must decide. Join us. The blood never leaves anyone alone." I gave no answer. All I knew was this. The rebellion would not stop. The blood had claimed them all, and very soon it would claim us too. In the 6th week, everything changed. We had believed it was only a virus, a toxic fungus, or some infection born from the depths of the mine. But the truth was far more terrifying. One night I followed a worker who had escaped quarantine. He ran through the tunnels like a madman, as if something was calling him. I chased him, and for the first time I saw the true place. At the very bottom of the mine lay a vast cavern. From its ceiling red droplets fell like blood. On the ground stood grotesque pillars of shell and bone, and in the center a throbbing mass, a heart, but the size of a mountain. The worker approached the heart, fell to his knees, and cried out, "Father of stars, I am here." And then I witnessed something that scarred my soul forever. From the surface of the heart, an arm emerged, not human, an amalgam of bone and blood. It seized the worker and drove crimson tendrils into his body. He screamed, but there was joy in his scream. When he rose again, his eyes were no longer human. He was now one of them. I hid and watched. Dozens already knelt around the heart, repeating the same words. "Blood is our father. The blood will bind us forever." Now I understood everything. This was no disease. It was an ancient being, a god of blood, sleeping for centuries beneath the earth, and our mining had awakened it. I was about to retreat when a voice spoke behind me. "Doctor, you have seen the truth. You cannot hide now." I turned, and it was Mira, the little girl. Her face still carried that innocent smile, but her eyes blazed with crimson fire. "The Father has called you too. Why do you resist? Why do you keep yourself apart?" My heart nearly stopped from fear. I could only say, "This is sickness. This is death." But she only laughed and replied, "No, doctor, this is not death. This is awakening. And very soon, the whole world will awaken." In that moment I knew only time remained. The blood god was rising, and once fully awake, nothing of this world would remain. I knew then there was no turning back. Every corner of the colony had fallen under the blood god's sway. The remaining survivors, those I gathered into a small storage hall, looked at me with fear and despair in their eyes. Yet somewhere within that fear I saw a spark. They knew, as I did, that we could strike one last time. We gathered explosives. The same charges once meant for mining would now be our final weapon. My plan was simple but perilous. We would descend into the cavern, plant the explosives near the heart, and bury it forever. I warned them none of us might return alive. In the silence, I could tell they were ready to pay the price. Under cover of night, we set out. The tunnels were still, yet faint red light pulsed through them, like the breath of the earth itself. With every step, it felt as though something peered into our veins. At one point, the walls bore streaks of moving blood, crawling like serpents. The soldiers with us faltered, but I signaled them forward. At the mouth of the cavern, we saw them, the Bloods faithful. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Their bodies had transformed beyond recognition. Some bore human faces but bestial arms. Others glowed with red light from within, as though their flesh housed a beating lantern. And at the center stood Mira. She was no child anymore. Blood streamed from her eyes, yet she smiled as if presiding over a holy festival. She raised her hand and called out, "Doctor, do you still deny it? Look at your own veins. The red is already within you. The Father has chosen you. You will not ignite the charges. You will join us." I looked down at my arms. Indeed, crimson veins were spreading beneath my skin. For a moment, I believed she was right, that perhaps I had no escape. But I tightened my grip on the detonator. Then the battle began. Gunfire cracked, explosions roared, smoke filled the cavern. The Blood's thralls screamed but rose again each time they fell, their blood seeping into the ground to restore them. One by one, my companions were cut down. The chaos was deafening. I pressed forward, desperate to reach the heart, but suddenly the ground split open. From the cavern's core, something emerged, not just the heart, but a monstrous being within it. A titan of blood and bone, towering like a mountain. Its scream rattled our very skeletons. This was a fragment of the Father of Stars, a being whose power could consume an entire world. The survivors broke. Some fled, others collapsed in despair. I kept moving. Then Mira stepped into my path. Her face streaked with bloody tears. She took my hand and whispered, "Doctor, this is your destiny. You are already changing. Leave them behind. Accept the Father. You will never be alone again." Her eyes still carried the innocence of a child. For a heartbeat, I wavered. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps blood was the future. But then I remembered the dead, their screams, their children, their humanity lost. I tore my hand away. Perhaps the blood runs in me, but my heart is still mine. I pressed the final detonator. Light burst, the cavern shook, the heart ruptured. The monster's scream shattered the earth itself. The ground collapsed from top to bottom. Voices shrieked all around me. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. Everything lay buried in rubble. Mira was gone. The faithful were gone. Only ash, stone, and silence remained. For a moment I thought we had won, that it was truly over. But then, in a pool of stagnant water, I saw my reflection. My eyes glimmered faintly red, and in my veins I felt that same pulse I had heard within the cavern's heart. I lowered my head and whispered to myself, "We may have buried it, but it will never be destroyed. It lives within me now, and one day it will awaken again." I thought it was over. The cavern was buried in the explosion, the faithful crushed beneath rubble, and the heart of blood had been torn apart. But the peace did not last. The remaining buildings of the colony stood empty. Where once thousands lived, now there was only silence and dust. I believed myself the last survivor. For days I wandered the ruins, scavenging for water and rations. Yet every night I dreamed. In my dreams I stood once more in that cavern, the red light calling to me. When I awoke, my veins burned. One day I told myself it was only madness. To test it, I cut my own hand. Blood flowed, but it was not the bright red of men. It was thick, black like poison. I screamed and flung the blade away. That night, for the first time, I heard their whispers again. "We are not gone. We can never be gone. You are part of us. You are our vessel." I trembled. The blast had buried their bodies, but the power itself lived on, inside me. Days later, I discovered a more dreadful truth. Above the colony, in the void of space, I saw a shadow. At first I thought it was an illusion, but each time I looked it grew clearer. Not a cloud, but a black mass swallowing light. Something vast, like a ship or a creature, looming down from the heavens. And then I knew. This was the true Father of Stars. The explosion had destroyed only a fragment. The being itself still lived. And now, sensing the crimson within me, it was watching. I wanted to run, but where could I go? The colony was destroyed. The comms towers lay buried in rubble. There was no way to send a message for help. I was utterly alone. Then a miracle came. One day, fire streaked across the sky. Imperium ships, space marines. They had come to learn what had befallen the colony. I fell before them and told everything. But when I admitted that the red now coursed through my veins, they raised their weapons toward me. One said, "This is no longer human. He is one of them. He must be destroyed." My heart raced. I cried out, "I am human." I fought for my people. I tried to save them all. But in their eyes there was only suspicion. And in that moment, the whisper returned, curling through my mind. "Do not let them believe. Do not let them silence you. You are not alone. We are with you." And I understood. The true war was only beginning. My war with the blood inside me. My war with the Imperium, which no longer saw me as human. And my war with the shadow in the void, waiting to one day consume an entire world. The Marines' footsteps were heavy. The thunder of their armor echoed on the dirt, like death itself was walking. When I saw them approach, hope stirred in me. But so did fear. Hope because perhaps they were my last salvation. Fear because in their eyes I saw only suspicion. A sergeant stepped forward. He stood twice the height of a man, the golden eagle of the Imperium emblazoned on his shoulders. "You survived? How?" he demanded. I told them everything, the cavern, the heart, the explosion. They listened in silence. But when I spoke of the change in my blood, the sergeant raised his hand. "That is enough. The red has tainted you. You are no longer human." My hands trembled. I pleaded. "I risked my life to stop them. I am still the same doctor. I am still human." But he leveled his bolter at me, and in that instant, the whisper returned. "Do not let them believe. They will kill you. We are with you." My heart pounded. I looked at my arms. Red was spreading through my veins. Time seemed to freeze. On one side, the Marines, ready to end me. On the other, the blood inside me, calling me home. The sergeant fired the first shot. I screamed and shut my eyes. But the bullet never pierced me. It struck something unseen and ricocheted away. The Marines glanced at one another in shock. The sergeant snarled, Heresy! These powers are of the damned. I was stunned. Where had this strength come from? Then the whisper roared, "We told you. You are ours. Your blood is no longer only human." The Marines opened fire together. Explosions shook the ground. I clutched my head, but something inside me broke. A scream burst from my throat, not human. From the earth rose jagged spines of blood and bone, striking out at the Marines. Two fell immediately. The rest staggered back. The sergeant drew his blade and roared, "He is the enemy now! Destroy him!" I gasped for breath. Darkness spun before my eyes. I looked at my hands. They were no longer mine. Bone jutted from my skin. My nails had lengthened into talons, and the whisper thundered inside my skull. Accept it. Resist no longer. Be their enemy. Be our son. I collapsed to the ground. Fire burned in my eyes. The Marines advanced. The blood called to me. And I was trapped between man and something else. The moment had come. I had to choose, surrender myself fully to them, or fight to my last breath for my humanity, even if it meant becoming the Imperium's enemy. The Marines leveled their weapons, the sacred symbols on their armor gleaming in the light. There was resolve in their eyes, but for me that resolve was a sentence of death. The sergeant stepped forward and declared, "You are no longer a witness. You are tainted. You are not permitted to live." The blood inside me boiled. My heart pounded, but it was no longer a human heart. The thick, dark red substance in my veins roared in my ears. "Kill them. They will never accept you. We will give you strength." The Marines opened fire. Bullets tore into me, but I did not fall. From my wounds, blood did not flow. It hardened, forming shells of bone-like armor. Before my eyes, my own body had become my shield. Their shock lasted only a moment before they pressed harder. One Marine charged, his power sword descending toward me. I stumbled back, but suddenly my hands erupted with jagged spikes that pierced straight into his chest. His heavy armor split apart, and his scream echoed through the dark. I staggered back, trembling. I had killed a Marine, perhaps for the first time, using the power of my blood. The whisper in my mind turned to laughter. "You've taken the first step. See how strong you've become. The rest will fall, and when all is done, you will be ours." The Marines roared in fury. "He is no longer human. He is a monster. End him now." I cried out, "I am human." But my voice was no longer human. It was deep, heavy, layered with echoes, like many voices speaking through me at once. They closed in, surrounding me. I gathered the last of my strength and ran toward the rubble of the explosion. Some crates of explosives still remained. If I could ignite them, perhaps I could end it all. But as I drew near, the ground trembled. From beneath the ruins came a scream, the same heart I had destroyed. Its remnants still lived. And now it was calling to me. Even the Marines faltered. Through their helmets I saw it, the flicker of fear. They knew this battle was not only against me, but against the thing that still refused to die. Inside me, two voices clashed. One thundered, "Kill the Marines. They are the enemy. Accept the blood." The other whispered faintly, "Resist. There is still time. There is still hope." I fell to my knees. The sky was turning crimson, the earth splitting apart, and the Marines advanced. And I wondered, am I still human? Or have I become the very monster I once tried to save others from? The light had gone out. The silence after the explosion was like the world itself had forgotten how to breathe. I stood alone in the ashes, my breath heavy, my veins still burning. I thought perhaps it was over. But then light appeared in the sky. Imperial ships. They descended, their armor gleaming. I thought they had come to save me. But when they saw me, I read the fear in their eyes behind their helmets. Their leader gestured, and shackles were clamped onto my wrists at once. I protested. I ended this for you. I gave my life for this. But the answer came cold. Perhaps you stopped the blood, but the blood is within you. You are a threat, and the Imperium does not leave threats alive. They bound me in chains and dragged me aboard their vessel. In the darkness of the ship, my heart pounded. But I knew it was not only my own heartbeat, it was the same crimson pulse, the same voice, the same whisper. You cannot be caged. We are inside you. You are free. You will always be free. A shiver coursed through me. Had it truly ended? Or was this only the beginning? The ship rose into the void. Through the window, I looked down at my world. It lay buried in rubble, but in its depths, perhaps the blood's whispers still stirred. The soldiers watched me as though I were a plague. Their words echoed in my mind. Take him. He will be examined. If he can be cured, he may live. If not, he will be burned. Two wars raged within me. One, the man who had sacrificed everything. The other, the blood that spread through my veins. I felt the weight of the chains. They were forged of iron, but my true prison was within my own flesh. And in that moment I knew my story was not over. This captivity was only a new beginning, because the blood knows how to wait, and the blood is always hungry. He ship-drifted through space. I sat in chains like a shadow, neither day nor night, only light and darkness passing in turns. The Marines did not speak to me, only watched with cold eyes. To them I was no man. I was a threat, a tainted thing. At last we arrived at a fortress station suspended in the void. Golden eagles were etched across its towering walls. There the Inquisitor awaited me. An old man, his eyes cold as ice. He said, "So this is the one, the prisoner of blood. We shall see what in you still lives and what has already died." They dragged me into a dark laboratory filled with machines, cruel instruments, and jars that held imprisoned creatures. They pierced me with needles, drew my blood, and exchanged glances of astonishment. My blood was not like theirs, thick, black, shot through with crimson light, as if it lived. One scientist whispered, "This blood, it's breathing." And he was not wrong. I felt it move within their instruments. Sometimes I saw the vials tremble, as though something inside them had a heartbeat. Once a vial shattered, and from within spilled tiny tendrils of blood, crawling across the table. The scientist screamed, and the guards burned it at once. But the tendrils did not die. They turned toward me and hissed, "We are yours, and you are ours." I shut my eyes, wishing it were delusion. But it was not. The blood still lived, and now it touched even those who had chained me. At night, when I was left alone, I heard whispers in the walls, as though the blood had begun running through the very wires of the station. In the morning, a scientist said in awe, "This is not just disease. It is a living mind, a will that does not accept captivity." And then I understood. I was no prisoner. The true prisoners were those who thought they held me captive because the blood was no longer confined to my veins. It was in their walls, their machines, their tools. I sat in chains and laughed. You think you are experimenting on me? In truth, it is the blood that is experimenting on you. The corridors of the fortress station had always felt cold and lifeless. But that night something changed. Even in chains, I sensed the walls were breathing. The lights of the machines flickered, and the whispers, once confined to my mind, now filled the air for all to hear. A guard flinched and muttered, Where is that voice coming from?" But I knew. It was the voice of my blood, now running through the wires and pipes of the station. The first incident came when a young scientist typed at his console. Suddenly, thin red threads, like veins, sprouted from his fingertips and burrowed into the screen. In seconds, the monitor was crawling with black and crimson blotches. His scream rang through the chamber, then silence. From his body, tendrils spilled out, creeping across the floor. The soldiers unleashed their flamethrowers. Fire roared, smoke, screams, the stench of burning flesh. But when the haze cleared, the veins had not turned to ash. They had hardened like stone, grafting themselves into the wall. "Impossible," a soldier cried. I only smiled and said, "You thought you could cage me. In truth, this station has become the blood's new heartbeat." Soon the other captives began to change. Those held near me trembled as red bled into their eyes. Their bodies convulsed before they tore into the guards, some crushed, others devoured. But the most terrifying moment came when a scientist staggered forward, whispering through bloodied lips, "We are all one now. You are not alone." Veins hung from the walls. Machines dripped with blood. The station was no longer a laboratory. It was a new living being. The Inquisitor returned, his icy gaze fixed on me. "We have lost control," he admitted. "But if you are bound to this blood, perhaps only you can stop it." I laughed in his face. "Me? No. I am not here to stop it. I am the door through which it has entered." And for the first time, the chains around my wrists shattered by themselves. The blood had set me free. The station was no longer a station. It beat like a heart, its walls pulsing with crimson light. Outside, the Imperial fleet had formed a blockade. Dozens of warships pointed their guns at us. Over the Vox came their final warning. "This is your last chance. Surrender or be reduced to ash." But inside, everything had changed. Prisoners, scientists, even some of the guards had become part of the blood. They looked to me as though I were their leader. Their lips moved, yet the voice was one. Collective, resonant, overwhelming. "We are yours, and you are ours." I knew the decision was mine. End it all, or fulfill what my blood demanded. Suddenly, the Inquisitor appeared before me. His wounds were deep, yet his eyes still burned with light. "This is your moment," he said. "You will either save humanity, or begin its end." The blood screamed inside me. "Let go. Let us through. We are hungry. We are ready." My hands trembled. To one side, the control panel, if I chose, I could destroy the heart of this ship, burn the blood into ash. To the other, the red pulse, promising that if I surrendered, we would become something greater, something beyond death itself. Inside me, screams, whispers, prayers, and curses all collided. I looked at the Inquisitor. He spoke his final words. "Your decision will write history." My hand touched the controls. The moment stretched, time frozen. Outside, the Imperial fleet opened fire. Thousands of rockets, lances of laser light, torrents of fire rained upon the station. Within, the blood took one last pulse, a heartbeat so great the walls themselves shook. And then, light, silence, darkness. Did I press the button, or did the blood stay my hand? That secret may never be known. All that was recorded in the archives was this. That day, a light erupted in the void, so fierce it was seen across entire systems. Some say the station was burned to ash. Others say it became a living ship and vanished into the stars. And some still hear crimson whispers drifting from the depths of space. The story did not end. The story never ends. But in truth, this is where it begins. In the archives of the Imperium, it may be written that a station was reduced to ash. Or perhaps rumors will spread that a ship bound in blood still drifts through the void, alive, searching for a new world. Some will say it was only a story. But if ever you hear crimson whispers in the silence of space, or in the night of some forsaken world, remember, it is not just a story. It is a warning. Because the blood is always hungry, and the blood never dies.